In the heart of Tasmania's wilderness lies Cradle Mountain, a place of breathtaking beauty and unforgiving terrain. It's a destination that has long called to adventurers, hikers and nature lovers. But in May of 1965, this majestic landscape became the site of a tragic event, one that would claim the lives of a dedicated teacher and a young student.
I grew up in Pomona Road, Riverside, and also Morley Road, West Riverside. And life was very simple. Wasn't a lot of traffic. We used to even roller skate on Pomona Road. And those were the days when you came home, you did your homework, you had something to eat, and then you went to other friends' places in the area to play. And then your mother came out on the front step and yelled down the street, "Tea's ready!" And then you'd go home. And then after tea, you'd go out and play again, because a lot of this time was pre-television too.
I suppose it was a bit of adventure starting from Exeter Primary School and then heading up towards the big smoke in town and Riverside, and totally new experience, going to another school and meeting other people and gaining new friends and so forth.
It was one of the initial intake of grade 7s who came to this school. Am I looking to you or the camera?
Straight towards me.
Sorry.
What was school like?
What was school like? Very enjoyable for me because I was a motivated sort of kid, and I knew most of the cohort. Riverside Primary probably dominated in the numbers who came here.
I remember walking to school sometimes too, and the uniform of those days, those early days of Riverside High School, we had a summer uniform which is quite similar to what it is now with a blazer, but we had a dear little boater straw hat, and in the winter we had to wear grey gloves and grey stockings, and the uniforms, not even all the skirts came in after a while, but we had those, uniforms that started here, the big box pleats, and we had a felt bowler hat type thing, and woe betide anybody who got caught without their hat on.
When they did start the outdoor club, and David Kilvert was my best friend, and he and I signed up immediately for that. Yeah, we enjoyed that. We go for excursions and walks and so forth, and we did do a overnighter at Ironstone Mountain before we did the trip on the Cradle Mountain one.
I was very elusive. I never got into trouble. I was quite sport obsessed. I had a brother who was 1 year older, 2 years older, but 1 grade ahead, and so most of our holidays were spent with tennis, cricket, football, all those usual 1960s pursuits.
The school trip was to be a challenging but rewarding 5-day bushwalking expedition through the northern half of the Cradle Mountain Lake St Clair National Park. A group of 16 students from Riverside High School were accompanied by 3 teachers, Mr John Chick, Miss Rosemary Bays and Mr Ewen Scott. During 5 long days, they walked north along the overland track with steep sections, boggy button grass plains and coverings of snow. The group stayed in very cramped huts each night. As they journeyed further north, the weather deteriorated, and on the 4th night it snowed very heavily.
Really, it was my dad who was really keen for me to experience something like that. He was a German and loved the outdoors, and I had a fairly outdoor life as a child. We went to the beach a lot, and I played in the bush near my house, and I think the motivation came from him. He wanted me to do it and I wanted to please him, so I signed up for it.
I think we all bought the the boots from Allgoods, which were ex-army boots that we had, and second-hand ones, and the same with the packs and everything. It was just we used to do a bit of training, David and I, with bricks in our pack, and so we'd be fit enough for the walk. And and then we the big day arrived, and we're quite excited about going up in the mountains. We didn't really have anything to do with snow before that, and it was certainly an experience.
It was in winter. It was very exciting getting ready for it. We gathered at near the Riverside Golf Club. There was a carpool, and we travelled there on a cold morning, and I think it probably became a little bit better weather as we headed, as the morning went on. But for me it was quite an adventure to discover these places and these mountains and huts. I had heard of Cradle Mountain, but I don't think I had ever visited before 1965.
I was looking forward to being in the mountains. I was looking forward to some camaraderie, and it wasn't, my thoughts were that it was going to be a lot shorter than what it actually turned out to be. So I think, even on the first day, I think a lot of us were tiring, but then we were refreshed overnight, ready for the new days and things like that. A lot of us were falling into rivers when we had to do a little cross, or creeks really, when we were crossing, and wet feet and drying our socks and boots by the fire in the hut every night, yes.
We started actually from, I think it was Arm River Road, and we put our packs on and had to go up big steep hills to join up with the actual overland track, and it started raining, and we all got sort of quite damp, and from then on, well, it was pretty cold and wet and a bit miserable in a way.
The first several days were not too arduous, and I don't think the weather was too bad until perhaps 48 hours before the worst hit.
The blizzard eventuated, and that was very, very strong. I remember climbing through snowdrifts up to the tops of my thighs, one leg at a time out of the snow, and that really slowed us down. Yes. So we ran out of daylight.
And we got to the hut later, or reasonably late, but some of the people wanted to go to a waterfall, and some of us decided which to stop, and I said to David, I think it's going to be a big day tomorrow, the last day. I think I'm going to stay. He said, I want to see the waterfall, and anyway, so off they went, and they were quite a while. I think they got back before dark and whatever, but I got a feeling that may have tired him out a bit.
What happened next is there were some stronger students, stronger walkers. It was decided that they go ahead to raise the alarm, and another group were directed to go to the boat shed by Dove Lake, and there were, I was included in a group of 3 girls and 1 boy and Mr. John Chick, teacher. We pulled off the side of the track on the top of Hanson's Peak in the cold and the wet and the wind and the rain. No tents. We had a couple of ground sheets, and we tried to stay awake overnight. It was quite raw to us that we knew that there was a chance that we wouldn't pull through.
I guess I had some sense that I was getting into a bit of trouble and wishing this walk would finish, but of course it was well short and there were still hills There's still snow. And I guess anyone who's in those sort of situations looks back and can detail their feelings, but for me it was just a bit of a nightmare going on, and I wanted to finish.
One of the teachers, I think it was Miss Bayes, although I thought it could have been Mr. Chick, but he sent us, 3 of us, on ahead, and Peter, myself and Diane, we went ahead, and he said, if you continue down Hanson's Peak, you should find a car park and cross a little bridge, and then it's another walk up to Waldheim and alert the ranger that we're in trouble. And I did look around to David and said, are you coming, mate? And he said, oh, no, I think I'll stay. That's the last I saw of him.
On day 5, the walkers climbed behind Cradle Mountain, where the snow was extremely deep, making steps very difficult. The conditions were blizzard-like, and the wind was blowing so hard that some students were being blown over. On the way to Hanson's Peak, several students were becoming exhausted and were experiencing the effects of the freezing weather. The main group continued on through darkness to the Dove Lake boat shed, where they spent a freezing night. One of the students, 13-year-old David Kilvert, was becoming very weak through struggling to keep up with the group.
It was getting towards dark. We had to go down a very steep part, and my mum had knitted some woolen gloves, and I think I had a pair of socks over the top as well, because my hands were frozen. You sort of had an icicle hanging off your nose, and it was just freezing cold, and you had to grab hold of a bush to get down this steep little section, and I grabbed hold of this bush and the sock came off my hand, and I just looked at it, and I didn't have the strength to pick that sock up and put it back on. I just left it.
Well, I was only 13, nearly 14. Well, I think we were just worried, but John Chick allayed our fears, and you know, we all tried to keep warm, clustered together and under the ground sheet, and we tried to keep it light. There was no doom and gloom, and in the morning John Chick was able to stumble down the mountain, and he raised the alarm.
By this time it was getting dark, freezing cold, raining, snowing a bit, and we didn't really have a clue where to cross, and we looked up and down and there was water raging because of the melted snow. We knew we'd got to the creek that we had to get over, and we tried to, but it was over waist deep and it was sort of raging pretty well, and we went up and down. By this time it was pitch black, and we were all very tired, and I said, well, I don't know about you guys, but we can't make it. Hopefully the others have found shelter. Some of them were going to go another way, and there was talk of a boat shed. And so I said, I don't know about you two, but I'm going to go under those bushes there with my sleeping bag, and I'm going to try and warm up, and hopefully the moon will come out and we can keep going.
Well, it was so dark we weren't aware of what was coming up. We just ended up down on the edge of the lake, and I can't even recall being able to see the lake because of the weather. And we were shepherded by Rosemary Bayes into the boat shed, and it was well past dark, and she said, we'll wait here a while till someone comes to help, or words to that effect. And there was probably room for the dozen of us to each lean against the in the interior wall of the boat shed and have our feet out. The toes were cold, the ankles were cold, and it was creeping up. And I guess the body warmth of people together probably helped, and certainly the encouragement and calmness that the teacher exhibited helped a lot. I think she had us singing songs.
As the others moved on, Scott did everything he could to keep the young boy warm and awake in the relentless cold.
And then the rescuers found us. We couldn't even get out of our sleeping bags. We were so cold and freezing, and they had to rub our arms and legs and give us hot soup and then support us, because we couldn't walk alone, support us down Hanson's Peak and back to safety.
I think the ranger or some of the other rescuers stuck their head round near dawn or a bit after dawn round the boat shed, which had 3 enclosed sides, and we just followed along, and I seem to recall sitting in a big, his vehicle, not seated, but on the back where normally he would carry packs and other gear, inside of course, and we went to Waldheim.
Hard, it was very, very hard. I think I was carried at one stage as well, because we were just simply done in, very, very exhausted. And then we were taken to Waldheim, and I was examined by a doctor because I had suffered from asthma in the past, and he sent me to La Trobe Hospital.
As I think the snow and the rain had stopped, and we thought, gee, we better keep going, and it was just enough light to see your hand in front of your face, so we kept going in. And yeah, so we found the way to cross the creek, and we went up to the ranger's hut, and of course they were still in bed. It was just on daylight. We banged on the door and told them who we were, and they said, yes, we were worried about you, and told them the story, and the ranger came out and he said, right, we'll get things organised, and we told him the way we'd come, but we said there's a possibility the others could have gone around to the boat shed. We didn't know where the boat shed was, but later in the day there was police and so forth, and I think an ambulance, I noticed it.
Yes, we were given soup and something to eat, and possibly there were some spare clothes floating around because we were soaked initially, and then we were told that sometime after lunch various parents would arrive, and I hoped mine might be among them, and it had been difficult for them back here in the city, or near the city, because of radio reports that 2 were dead and no names.
Next morning, the search efforts had begun and the rescue team had made heartbreaking discoveries. David's body was found below the track leading down from Hanson's Peak towards Dove Lake. Mr. Scott's body was found in some bushes near Dove Lake where he had collapsed from exhaustion and exposure. Both had succumbed to the freezing conditions overnight.
Another thing I do remember, a big burly copper came in and he charged in and he said, who was the little fella in the red parka? And my heart sank. And yeah, it was, I said, oh, that was David Kilvert. And he said, oh, and he just walked back out. I said, is he all right? And he didn't answer me, he just went off. And of course, all day we weren't told anything.
And I was lying in hospital listening to the hospital radio, waiting for my mum and dad to come from Riverside. And I found out over the news that Ewen, Scott and David Kilvert had passed away. It was devastating.
Oh, I just couldn't stop thinking, you know, what's happened? Have they found him? Is he okay? Has he gone to hospital? And so forth. Yeah, anyway, we still weren't told anything, and wasn't until I got off the bus and my parents were there, and Mum's sister, because my cousin went on the trip too, and she raced forward and gave me a big hug, my auntie, and I just looked across at Mum and Dad and I said, "What's happened to David?" And they said, "He's dead." And yeah, it really hit me then. Yeah.
I wondered what impact it would have on the whole school and those families who were affected, and gradually I realised it had something of an impact on me.
The loss of both Ewen Scott and David Kilvert sent shockwaves through the Riverside High School community and beyond. But out of this tragedy arose a determination to ensure that no future hikers would suffer the same fate. In the wake of the incident, Riverside High School, along with the Launceston Walking Club, took action. They rallied together to construct the Scott-Kilvert Memorial Hut at Lake Rodway, a shelter designed to provide protection and respite for bushwalkers facing the unpredictable elements of the Tasmanian wilderness.
I did go with my father and the friend who had driven him up and a couple of other men from around here, and we went in a boat and carried planks up from the point where you can get up towards Lake Rodway. Yeah, I found that difficult because I was going back to the place where I knew I had bad memories, and there hadn't been any counselling that I can recall, and yeah, that was very difficult.
My love of the outdoors has stayed with me, and I've certainly passed that on to my children. But being in snow now really freaks me out, and high winds, and it's just not a comfortable thing for me at all anymore. Riverside High School didn't allow it to disappear. There was lots of media attention when it first happened, of course, and we've all got those clippings. And then the Scott-Kilvert Award started at Riverside High School, which is, and that's still going. And at the anniversaries, the students that were on that, we have commemorated that both with the school and by going up to Cradle Mountain. And my dad, Ernst Kropf, he helped build the Scott-Kilvert hut. He was in no way, shape or form a builder, but he carried bags of cement up Hanson's Peak at weekends, pitched a tent with his friend, and they spent the whole weekend up there helping to build the hut. And when he was 90, my sister organised through Parks and Wildlife special permission for us to go up in a helicopter, my sister and I and Dad, and we landed at the Scott-Kilvert hut, and Dad was able to relive those times. And there's a little plaque on the wall that he was allowed to put on there that remains there to this day.
Yes, we when they were going to start building the hut, yeah, we I think all of us that were on the hike, we did go. I don't know, it was once or twice, but I remember carrying a 4x2 as well as my pack up on my shoulder, and we went up Hanson's Peak and right across to Lake Rodway and carrying these 4x2s that were normal height ones, whatever they were, 3 metres or whatever. Some of the kids shared one, I think, and we stayed overnight. I think we did that a couple of times.
Today, the Scott-Kilvert Memorial Hut stands as a tribute to the bravery and sacrifice of a teacher who put his students' well-being above his own, and to the young boy whose name lives on in the history of Tasmania's wilderness.
In 1995, I joined the Launceston Walking Club 3 years prior to that,
and the walking club always went into the Scott-Kilvert hut, memorial hut, and we did working bees and stuff like that. And then I became more aware of the tragedy that happened in 1965. Yeah, so the climate has definitely changed up there. I've been working up there for the last 16 and a bit years as a tour guide, and 15 years ago in the springtime you could be up there and then it'd be raining and then it'd start to snow and you'd have all your winter woolies on, your jackets and everything, and then half an hour later it'd be sunshine. There would have been 5 or 6 centimetres of snow, and then you'd be stripped off into a t-shirt. Nowadays, you can still get the 4 seasons in the one day, but often it's more part of the day or the full day. Yeah, there's a lot of people, Parks Tasmania have clamped down a lot on people doing the overland track, of having the right gear, but the day trippers, a lot of people get caught out. Well, compared to the lightweight stuff now, which, all of this lightweight pants and gloves and stuff you can put into a bag, jacket, you can put into a little bag like this, whereas they had a bigger A-frame pack and so on, and they would have had a sort of cotton Japara jacket, and they would have had a bush shirt, probably more than likely jeans or cotton pants, and the boots were pretty basic. They were more like work boots and not specialist lightweight Gore-Tex gear. So in comparison today, and they probably didn't have thermals, they would have been wet right to the skin, whereas modern day gear, you can be a bit wet on the outer, but the fabric on the inner still keeps your body warm. So, the chance of fatalities nowadays with proper gear are much reduced.
Every year, hikers are grateful for the shelter that the hut provides, often pausing to reflect on the story of Ewen and David, 2 lives lost but never forgotten.
I think the building of the hut was very important because that's a preventative measure, and it shows Riverside High in the community. Clearly the walking clubs and the rangers and the P&F here all played strong roles, but it is called the Scott-Kilvert hut and it's in a vulnerable position, so I think that's been very positive. I'm aware of the award that is given each year to a grade 10 student, and I'm really pleased that has lasted the test of time. And I think probably the school has been able to accept that something calamitous happened. It's memorialised, but also we can move on.
Their legacy is not only one of tragedy, but of resilience, compassion, and the enduring power of the human spirit. The Tasmanian wilderness, while beautiful, demands respect, and those who venture into it must be prepared for whatever nature has in store. Let us all continue to remember the bravery of the Riverside High School students and teachers in 1965, while commemorating the short lives of Ewen Scott and David Kilvert.